We're entering into a matrix of meaning that you've created around, toward, or away from, around something. We're just exploring to see what are the frames that create that sense of reality. So whatever comes, just let it come, and we'll explore it. So does everybody have somewhat of a ladder? It may not be real sequenced right now, because that's not what we're working on.
Now, where does emotions fit in that hierarchy that you've done?
Well, there's associative emotions here.
Yeah.
There's meta-level emotions associating back, and then you've got your Gestalt emotions of what the whole thing feels like.
So emotions are at each level.
Yeah. And once again, while we use these words, emotion, mind, as if they're separate, it is mind, body, emotion, system. So it's all interactive. So it's just for the purpose of talking that we can even say these words. That it's my emotions, because an emotion is made up of the mind-body system. So if you have started just to trace out some of this, the next one is on page 19, and this is the last question after you explore these. We've got the quality of your meanings. Because here's the principle. The quality of your life is the quality of your meanings. You can't have a better quality life on the inside than the quality of your meanings. So if you've got a whole bunch of real negative meanings, frames, and all you have to do is just pick up some newspapers or watch some TV things to get a whole bunch of really negative meanings and frames, the frame is the problem. So what we want to do is to do an evaluation on the quality. So here's the meaning scale so that we can gauge the quality of the meanings that we're living by. And so we'll ask what is called the ecology question in NLP, and we'll just refine it a little bit. As you step back from the way that you think about ill health and moving away from it, and low energy and moan, and this movie and this language and the association of sadness and regret and your evaluation of wanting to be healthy, but this is moving toward death and you've got to do something. As you step back from all of that, does that serve you well? Does this enhance your life? Does this make you more of who you can be? Does this empower you as a person? Would you want to take this and install it in anybody else?
No. but I definitely have a contradiction coming up just in my conversation.
Okay.
In that I get that it would serve me if I was totally walked out of it.
Okay.
But it doesn't serve me as it continues to be there.
Okay. So our first question is really an exploration of its value. So that this question puts you at choice. It invites you to choice point. Do you like it? Does it serve you? Do you want it? Does it enhance your life? Does it empower you? And by asking these questions and getting really clear, but you had a little bit of contradiction, so my guess is you have some intention, even though it's not working.
Right.
And your intention is?
To be healthy. And
to be healthy.
Feel really good.
If I gave you a magic wand and you could just make any meaning and reframe this any way you want, what would be the most empowering meaning that you could give yourself that would help you to be healthy in the way you want to be healthy? What would be the frame you'd like to wake up every day for the rest of your life in that would support your health?
What I'm seeing is like jumping out of bed, let's go.
Okay, so we got a new movie.
Yeah.
And is that the soundtrack about the movie, or is that the soundtrack coming out of your voice?
No, it's the soundtrack coming out of me jumping out of bed.
Okay, so if you see that, are you in the movie?
Yeah.
Okay, you're in the movie and jumping out and you hear the sound, let's go. And the voice, is it your voice?
Not sure.
Okay, is it male voice or female voice?
It's
Male
male.
voice, let's go.
Yeah.
All right, what would that mean to you? What would be the most empowering meaning you could give to that movie?
Life is good.
So we got some language, life is good. We're making that evaluation with life is good.
I'm fully participating.
I'm fully participating. What emotions would you associate with that? What would be the most empowering emotions you could bring? Life is good, I'm fully participating.
It's joy. It's happiness.
Okay, so bring some joy feelings about.
It also has a directionality to it, like there's purpose in it. It's going somewhere.
Okay. So now we're making that evaluation, and the metaphor is it's going somewhere, there's a direction to it. Okay. So what we're doing is using the same powers and giving ourselves a chance to remap. And as we expand this out, mapping it a little bit further and a little bit further, and we can use all these same questions as we keep editing it, setting new context, new frames, doing evaluation, and just bringing more meaning to it. How much do you feel this movie right now and these words, life is good, I'm fully participating, I'm going somewhere, there's direction now, there's some joy to getting out and taking action?
Actually, at this moment, I can feel it pretty good.
Okay.
That's kind of this bifurcated thing. It's like I can see this waffle
Okay.
going back and forth. I can see both of them.
Okay.
But I can also see that one has a directionality to it that would move me in the direction I want to go. And the other one tends to have me just stay in bed.
Okay. So what we're doing right now is just exploring the meaning matrix around something. We pick something, select it, and then we just kind of follow, see where does the brain go? And as the brain is going and representing, framing, evaluating, languaging, creating metaphors and these other things, we get a sense of that's what's happening at the emotional, behavioral level, and those are the meanings I've been performing. So first of all, we want to find out what meanings have you been performing. Once we find them and just explore, then we can step back, do the ecology, the quality control, asking those questions with this quality control. Then we can start remapping. So in some ways, if you try to map before you get rid of the old, we're putting something over it, but it's still there, operational. So to use our meaning-making powers, first we have to find them, discover them, and discover how actually we're doing it. And so we step into the choice point of being responsible. There's a couple questions. Let's take those, and then we'll take our break.
Well, just real quick, is it better to start with the problem than what you want to start with?
Wherever your
What you
brain
wanna
goes.
change?
Wherever your brain goes. So some people move away from, and they're more aware of that, and they're, I need to deal with, and so other people are more towards. So wherever your brain, when you think about unleashing some potential, where does your brain first go? And wherever it goes, just follow it. Follow that energy just to see what's been constructed and what matrix you're living inside of. And just map that out. And then map out the other side. So we're just trying to find the map that's guiding us into wherever we're going that may not be working.
So in essence, Michael, what you're saying is that you're focusing the person's attention, you're bringing into consciousness what is unconscious about the situation, and you're bringing into the foreground what has been in the background and operating on an automatic unconscious level. So the person can then look at it and examine it and see what they choose.
Exactly.
That's what we're doing.
Our frames of meaning, for the most part, are outside our awareness. But we can bring them into awareness if we have some process, some tool for doing that. And that's what we're doing. It presupposes that you're open to the realization that your emotions are functions of the meanings that you have made. So let's just go explore them. And the reason so many people can't go explore them is because they start judging them just as soon as they enter into the matrix. I hate this. Why is this? I'm always this way. And so instead of just exploring the matrix of meaning and all the frames and how you create that reality, so that's why the first step is just go for the exploration and stepping up to the fact you're the meaning maker. And it makes sense. So that's why I played with Arthur to say, good job of getting yourself really stuck.
Yeah.
Because once we take on, here's one of those counterintuitive things. You would think that by taking responsibility, it would shut you down more because you did it. But that depends, of course, what you believe about blame. In my world, blame doesn't occur. It doesn't serve me well. But taking ownership of my responses, called responsibility, taking ownership of my responses serves me well. Because if I created it, I can uncreate it. So first of all, we're exploring the layers of meaning around whatever and just seeing what's there. And so this is what we mean by taking the red pill. Life will never be the same once you know that you've created these levels of meaning. But once you find them, most of us find it easier if we have someone ask us the question. So that's what we're going to do when we come back from the break, to grab a partner and just ask the questions. And I would recommend just use the words. When you think about whatever they say, what comes to mind? And whatever they say, just follow that. If it's a picture, okay, tell me about the picture. If it's a words, it's those words. What's the tone of the words? What's the emotion associated with the words? What's your valuation? If they talk about some metaphor, a metaphor. It's like that, and you're feeling what? Your words are what? And we're just taking these distinctions of the layers and following them. So that's what we'll do. When we come back, I'll do a demonstration so you can see that, and then it'll be maybe a little bit easier, and we'll just go follow that. Any other questions on what we're doing so far as we explore the meanings? If you do get into a spin, because it is a spin, it's a spiral, and the faster your brain works, the more confused you can get. It's kind of payback for the intelligent ones. Because think about it, the faster your brain goes, you not only have one picture, you got half a dozen judgments, half a dozen memories, imaginations, emotions. And now we're going to slow it down, pull it apart, and try to understand what's going on. And so as we play with it, remember that you're more than your mind. Unless you're just a brain. That's all you are. And you're more than your emotions, unless you're just a hunk of emotions. These are just processes, functions, powers. And if we take ownership of them, we can use them really to make our lives so much better. They tell me we have to have a break, so we're going to take a break here in just a minute.
I just wanted to comment that one, as you went through it, it was just so easy. I mean, the stuff just came up, this, and this, and whatever came up, that was whatever it was.
Okay.
But, when you fed it back to me, when you all of a sudden, and I'm like, holy cow, he remembers every single, and I was really surprised when after you'd gone through several and you got up and you're still right there with it and it just keeps going. I really felt like I felt like you knew me somehow inside of me really, really good in a very short period of time that you had gotten a real good view.
Those of you who know NLP, pacing at this level is really, really powerful. You can create instant rapport, breathing, looking, voice volume, pitch, tempo, everything. And when we start pacing at the meta levels, it just creates more rapport, more connection. So 15-minute break, and then we'll be back here. I'll do a demonstration. what is something that you want to be unleashed from or unleashed to?
I want to maximize the outcomes from my step back skills.
Okay. What does that mean to you?
I'd like to have more reflective ability. I'd like to be able to be less impulsive. I'd like to have that ability to observe a situation before jumping in and making a decision.
Okay. So what stops you from that?
Judgment, emotion,
Okay.
shooting, all those meta programs.
Okay. So if you start thinking about developing that ability to step back and just reflect upon your experiences, what stops you is the judgment, the shoulds. How does that stop you?
I immediately put a value, whether it's good or bad, whether I should or I must, whether there's blame, there's a continuum of how I should be involved, what I could do, you know,
Okay.
and the expected outcomes
Okay.
that I'm held to.
So if I could peek in to see how you do that, if you were going to teach me to have that skill, what would I need to do? What would I need to say to myself or picture? Or teach me how to do that.
I'd say, Michael, why don't you look at the options? I tell myself it's good that I took a moment to look at my options. It's good for me to be able to see what I intend or what I want from this situation, how I'd like the outcome to be, what I actually want to feel.
And you're saying all of that when you're trying to do what, or in what context?
When this thing happens on me, this situation happens on me.
Give me a context. When does it occur that you feel like you're not reflecting, you're being impulsive? When does impulsivity occur?
Somebody says, these fittings that you chose for your new apartment are not available. And then I say, what? Not normally? And I say, I thought I told you to do that like 3 months ago, and you said they were available, and now they're not. That's what I
Okay.
would. That's what I would impulsively do.
Okay. As you're saying that, what images are coming to your mind? Are you pulling out a specific video to kind of play?
I'm looking at this scenario. I'm not really in it.
Okay.
I'm watching me go like that,
Okay.
and I know that it's rubbish, but you
So
know, I can see that.
So what does it mean when out of your mouth comes what is not available?
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
It means that I've lost control.
Okay. Okay, let's just follow that. You've
You know,
lost.
yeah, I've lost my choices.
How have you lost your choices?
I could have. It would have been good for me to decide how I respond
Okay.
instead of how I react
Okay.
by what outcome I want.
So let's run with that. I've lost my choices.
Yeah.
Let's say you have. And you made a judgment, and you lost your choices. What does that mean to you? What comes to mind?
Not a lot, actually, because it didn't really mean that much, even if I didn't have the furniture items of my choice.
Okay.
Really, it doesn't really mean anything.
Okay. But
There's
it must mean
always- yeah.
something.
There's always another store,
Okay.
but the emotion of it, that's what I said just now,
Okay.
the emotion of it was I spent so much time selecting those things that I liked.
Okay. So let's say that's true. I spent so much time choosing these things I like. What does it mean to you if it's not now available?
Well, firstly, that's my time gone, and
So time is gone.
I already visualized my apartment with all those things.
So you already made the picture of partner
Yeah.
with these things. Time is gone.
Yeah.
What emotion is connected to that? What do you feel about loss of time, and now partner doesn't have those things?
Could have done something better with my time.
Okay. So here's the could-haves or the should-haves that
Should-haves.
you're doing. So I could have. Let's say you could have, but you didn't. Let's say you could have. What does it mean that you didn't? Let's say you did waste time, and now the apartment doesn't have those things, and you could have.
Not much.
Okay. And yet when you're in that state, there's impulsivity going on and
Because
judgment
I'm just
going on.
running. I'm just running. I'm not thinking. I'm just going with the emotion.
Okay. So let's set that aside. Here's a conversation. You find out that they don't have something. The back of your mind, you've got a couple frames. I've already seen the apartment with this. Now it's not there. I've wasted time. Thinking that way about that event, does that help you? Does this make life a party?
No.
Does this enable you to be a better person?
It just makes me look dumb.
Makes you look dumb. So there's a frame in the back. Okay. Okay. Maybe you need this frame for another 5 years just to make sure that this doesn't work. You've had enough of this.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the quality of this frame? Is this is not high quality? Would it be medium quality, or would it be really low?
Really low quality.
Okay. So had enough of this. Are you ready to stubbornly refuse to let this be the frame that guides and governs the way you move through life? Okay. If you had a magic wand and could just put a frame in so that when the same event happens and the person says, we don't have that, what would you like to think so that you could be more reflective, so that you could step back? What would you like to think that would put you into a state where you can handle it better?
I want control.
Okay. And how would you get control? What would be
Keep
the
my
frame?
choices. To keep my choices.
Okay. So how would you do that?
Tell myself to think about what's important
Okay.
first.
Okay. To think about what is important. Okay. So how would you do that? How would you direct your brain to think about your values and what's important?
Just like that swish pattern or something that would just, whenever there's a trigger, I feel a trigger coming, I would just ask myself, think about what's important first.
Okay. What is important for you in a conversation like that with someone? What is important?
To protect my choices, to protect my dignity.
Okay. Protect your choice, protect your... So how would you do that? How would you just put a frame that I always have choices and my dignity is just...
Because when I ask myself, what's the most important thing, then that would automatically come to mind.
Okay. Do you believe people can take choice away from you?
No.
Do you believe they can take dignity away?
As I do it.
Okay, you toss it away.
Mm.
So a frame, what if a frame is my choices are always here, my dignity is always here? How would you represent that? How would you think about that? What would be your words to set that in place, that I always have choices, I always have dignity, even when you don't get what you want in that conversation?
I'm worth it. I'm worth protecting.
Okay. So if you set that, is that enough?
Yeah.
So if we take that, I'm worth it, and you pull out this movie and play that again from that frame of mind,
Mm-hmm.
okay, then in that context you could maintain your ability to step back, reflect, and choose how to have that conversation without being impulsive or reactive.
Yes. Yes, it'll take some practice for me to realize the trigger points. But
Okay.
I could do that, yes.
Okay. Okay. So realizing trigger points. So that sounds like maybe a new exploration, to go around and hope someone pushes the buttons and get the triggers going so that you can, look at a trigger point. Are you up to that challenge?
Yes.
Could we commission everybody to see how many buttons they can push? just to practice.
Sure.
Because your reflexivity and ability
3 hours,
to step
3
back.
days.
So how's that?
Good.
Okay.
Really good.
Or even people from Malaysia can become more resourceful. So when we do these processes, one of the things that you'll notice, and the reason for the demonstration, is because of the fluidity and brain can go everywhere, and emotion, all kinds of emotions can come up, holding this in place. So what I did with her is, and I do it oftentimes, I'll gesture right in front. What is the trigger that sets this off? If this is the matrix of all your frames, what triggers it, what sets it off, and this now grounds it. So I'll keep coming back to ground it. So with John, I kept coming back to not good health, to ground it somewhere. So we want to ground the matrix and then just let this thing go spinning everywhere. And did you notice it went spinning with Tessie? Just the mind goes everywhere trying to hold, because there's this part of her that wants this, and then there's this part of her that thinks this, and it's just spinning. So just holding it in place. I want to find out where does it go that's not all that useful. So when I get that frame of not having choices, not having dignity, and it feels like that's going, I want to know what that means. So I'll build out that ladder just to find out what's that all about. Once we have that ladder of meaning, then we'll do the quality control. Step aside from it. Does this serve, enhance, empower, make things better? And in order to get a little distance, this does not work, I don't need this. But every once in a while, there's something in the back of the mind, as in John's case, he was using it, I'm guessing now, my hallucination, to motivate to do something. So I want to find out what's in here and what in this. Sometimes I'll ask the question, as you think about this, is there anything of that that has value, that says something to you of importance that you want to keep? Because there may be something of value that I'll keep. Okay, where do you want to keep it? How do you want to keep it? How do you want to frame it, phrase it, so that you can keep that information, knowledge, intelligence with you? Now, keeping that, what frames do we want to build up that if you had this frame, this behavior, this event here, you'd be able to resourcefully respond to it from this frame of mind? In Tessie's case, it was very simple. It was, I have choice, I have dignity. And so with that in mind, and coming back to hold this in place, look at that, is that enough to handle that? So when you're the questioner, the coach, the person facilitating the process, you're not trying to fix anything. So this will free you from needing to understand, because this is the thing about self-actualization. One of the principles is that we are a self-organizing structure that will find our own answers and resources if we are given the chance to just be with it. And so here's one of the counterintuitive things. Sometimes we try to solve our problems too quickly. And we don't stay with the problem just to be with it. And see how we're creating the... So we have a matrix of impulsivity with Tessie, as she gave us that example, an example of impulsivity. She wanted something else. She wanted to step back and have more reflexivity and awareness. But those are abstractions. So I had to ground it in, what are we actually talking about? What would trigger you being impulsive rather than reflective? If you don't do that, if you don't ground it, it all get loose and it'll float up into the meta atmosphere, and we've lost people that way. Hello. So you got to ground it in something specific, and then find out where does it go. And if you're the questioner, if you're the supporter, you're really holding a space for a person just to explore, see where it goes. And so as you're exploring it with acceptance, appreciation, empathy of the person, just holding that space so they can just go explore to see what are the frames creating it. So, Gary.
Michael, is there maybe a presupposition that as you do that self-reflectiveness back on, that you're beginning to, in some way, alter and then state it, back and forth, that's inherent in the process?
Yeah. So like any system, the observer is not, the observer will influence and affect the system. So it's inevitable, even though we try to hold it as, and the person it'll be changing. And we're holding that space so the person can go explore.
And so as you're going through this ladder of meeting, you're actually in the process of therapizing it, or changing it, or improving it, or altering it, inherent in the process, so that makes the chunks smaller and smaller that you need to change every time.
Most of the time that occurs. Sometimes it won't. And one of the other counterintuitive things is I said to Tessa, I said, let's just take this impulsivity. Let's say that's so. Let's just say that. And whatever the person will give to me, if they say, well, he took away my dignity. Okay, let's say that's so. What does that mean to you? Well, that means that it's calling into my very personhood. Okay, let's say that's so. So what does that mean to you? So we're just going to hold it. So whatever horrible thing that they say, you just hold it. Because they're just words, just a frame. The frame is the problem, never the person. And so we're just going to hold it, find out where it goes. Well, Tessie went up a couple levels, and she said, that's just it. When she said it doesn't mean anything, so I went back down to ground it again. But you feel impulsive. You feel this. You feel that. Because I want to ground it. So she went up, and we still didn't get anything more. So when we stepped it aside, then she gave me one frame a little bit later. And what was that frame? I would look dumb. No, that's what I mean to you. Look dumb. So here's another principle we're operating from is that whatever we're doing, there's almost always another frame outside of awareness, a frame by implication. The FBI frames. And they've got us. And so we're just running with it just to see. And so I would look dumb was more outside of awareness, but it was one of the frames driving it. Now, you can play a lot with that. We could come back and say, so you look dumb. Tell me how that works. Let's say you look dumb. Let's say you look really, really dumb. So, and so we're just holding and going. And with almost anything, we can just keep going. And the other premise is that when you hold it, eventually it'll pop. It'll pop into something positive if you do it long enough. Because now we're using our reflex. We have a self-reflexive consciousness. And if we'll just follow it out, we can put it to good use instead of the negative use it usually gets attached to.
So then you explore the levels of meaning, problems. Once in a while they'll pop over and create a resource for resource that gradually build both.
So if your person pops out, because this will happen so often, we're trying to find out, we're really trying to make it worse before it gets better. So let's say it's this, and what would that mean? This, and it gets worse, and it gets worse. In the meantime, they're popping over, I should be doing this and that. If you hear that, go, great, that sounds like a resource. In a minute, we'll come back to that and see what will happen. But for now, let's just keep it over there. The deep shit you were just talking about is this. And let's say that's true. What would that? We want to get it worse and worse until it pops. We're thresholding. That's why I said, have you had enough of this? Maybe you need 5 years more of this. No. It's not working. Because we're trying to threshold. Because if you don't, if you're nice in this if you're compassionate and nice, and when they say this, you say, oh, okay, there's a resource. Let's go build this, and you leave that. Then it's negative enough, and they got some positive, and they got some negative, and now they're going to be in that indecision. I haven't threshold this enough to say enough. So we want to threshold this and to get a strong no. Have you had enough of this? Do you want more of this? No. Maybe you need more? No.
Is there any value in anchoring the resources?
At that point, I would just remember the names of the resources and come back to them later. Because in one way, we're clearing space. This is in the way. This is in the way. This is the meanings that's going on right now with regard to that, and it's in the way. And I can go and put all kinds of resources and all kinds of the things, but this is still in the way, and so it's like putting new paint on something that's old and rusty. So that's why I want to take this out as far as I can, blow it out, and then say, if I had a magic wand, you could just, I know you don't, but if you could have any frame you want for the rest of your life, it's just a game. I know you can't. You have to be stuck in here for the rest of your life. But if you could, what would you want? And we're doing that contrast. We'll build this up later and make it really strong, but first we've got to clear the space. We've got to clear the space of the old frames, because the old frames are in the way. And that's why it's so important to find them. And because sometimes just naming the frame, oh, I would look dumb. And sometimes like, that is dumb. What was I thinking? When did I build that frame? So you'll ask the question, what do you want to unleash? What stops you? What stops you? What stops you from turning loose, being free, getting on the highway, putting the pedal to the metal? What stops you? Well, what do you believe about what stops you? What do you believe about that? And what do you think about that? And what does that mean to you? And what's your picture? And what are your words? And what's your value? So we'll just go explore that meaning ladder to find out what you think is in the way. Because it's what you think about what you interpret as the interference that holds it in place. So if what holds it in place is, well, people will criticize me. Well, criticism isn't in your way. It's what you believe about criticism. And if you believe that, well, it'll hurt my feelings and I won't have friends, well, what do you believe about that? And now we're building up the matrix of interference. So, what do you want to unleash? What's in your way? What do you think about that, believe about that, and all the meaning things? So that'll be the process. Any questions on that? Is everybody ready to go? It's just an exploration. We're not trying to fix anything. So all of you fixers, how many got the disease of fixedness? You got to fix people? Stop it.
So what's the purpose of building up the matrix of interference?
Mostly just to see where all that mapping goes, and because this will tell us how we are stopping ourselves and how we are creating that interference. We think the interference is this thing here. We think the interference is their criticism or they are doing this and that, but it's really our beliefs about such. So.
Michael, that's a very good point about the clearing the space. And when you have all the negative stuff hanging around, until you get to the threshold and say enough, that negative stuff really contaminates the resources. And I think that's where you're getting to when they pop out and they go over there. The resources get contaminated. You don't reach threshold. The person doesn't then buy into it. And
so is everybody ready? This is just an exploration, don't fix, so just 10 minutes of exploration. 10 minutes of exploration, then we'll be back here. If you get in trouble and their matrix is spinning, just let one of us know and we'll come around and make it worse. How did that go? Terrible. Who said terrible? So the purpose was exploration of your matrix. What do we need to do some debriefing or troubleshooting to help you become more skilled as an explorer in this territory of someone else's frames?
So as I was going through this, I was answering the question. I'm looking up at your chart with the two things on it, because it seemed, although I had a matrix and stuff all over the map, it kind of came down to one and the other. Is that a typical pattern, or is there 10, or does it usually go down that you wish you didn't go down, and one you wish you'd go down more?
Oftentimes, it's almost an occupational hazard of learning, because we learn something that we should be doing, but we have this frame that just is on automatic and just keeps, and we keep popping out, I should be doing, and then we beat ourselves up and we're back and forth, and it doesn't get resolved because we don't threshold that one. And so we keep, as it were, dampening it. We have just enough resource to get by, but we haven't actually dealt with the old frame. So then it feels like we're on the one hand, then on the other hand, and we have that back and forth either or thinking between solution and problem. So that can occur.
What I found out for myself is that when I was exploring the problem state and the meaning of it, that really what was uncovering were some, what you referred to as dragon states.
Okay.
And that, and
right.
which sent me back to some earlier times in my head and some earlier movies and some earlier frames. And
okay.
That became real apparent to me that what I was dealing with in the here and now was really reflective of something from there and then.
Okay. Okay.
It was real apparent.
So this is why, when we ask, where did these frames come from? Well, they came from a previous time. They've come from our past that we're holding in mind and carrying with us as an interpretive, explanatory structure. Because one of the ways that we create meaning, since there is no meaning, with a 5-year-old brain, we explain what's happened. We explain and have an explanatory style about life or others or the world, and then we just live in that frame. And it becomes our glasses, our structure, our values, our beliefs. We live in that frame, and then we take it everywhere we go. We never leave home without that past frame. Well, it's not the past that's hurt us, it's the interpretive pattern that we created that we're still repeating. And that's why the frame is the problem, not the past. But the frame, if it's a judgment frame, if you're attacking your own self for something and not letting it go, then that's how we hold in the mind, that's the meaning. Then whatever triggers it is semantically loaded. It is loaded with lots of meaning. So we have a semantic reaction. Just like you have a physical reaction, light shine in your eyes, you blink, you have a physical reaction. We react because of what it means to us. So a semantic reaction because it's semantically loaded. That's what we're looking for. Where's the semantically loadedness of something that doesn't serve you well? And you react semantically because of the meanings that's going on inside your system. Okay?
Could you speak a little more to meta programs? Are you speaking about the NLP meta program? Could you review this? It's been a while since I've looked at this.
Well, there's 60 of them, and
Well, no, the big ones for this context.
meta programs are meta states that get inside our eyes. So any meta state will eventually send such signals to the body that they become embodied, and we say it's our perception now. So the most simple meta program is optimistic, pessimistic. Is the glass half full, half empty? Same glass, same amount of water, but I see it in terms of and interpret it through half empty, half full. So it's the way we see things. So do I move through the world looking for what fits with what I know, or do I move through the world looking for what doesn't fit? Matching, mismatching. Do I move through the world looking for a procedure, because this last exercise would have driven you crazy, or do I move through the world looking for all the options? Do I move through the world judging or just perceiving? So meta programs are these either or, it's this way on a continuum, and they tend to, after we set that frame, I'm going to look for what, I'm going to match what I know. I'm going to mismatch what I know. That after a while they become the way we see things. And if it's real strong, if it's a driving meta program, then you can't even see the opposite. You're blind to it. So what we want to do is to expand the meta program so we have flexibility of consciousness, so I can put on these glasses or those glasses and have flexibility. So those are some of the main ones. Do I move through the world looking for the big picture, or do I move through the world looking for details? So when you step back from your frames, you'll have a sense of some of these basic filters.
If it is in a meta program, is there meanings are at the meta program level? Can we still self-actualize? Can you?
Part of our model will be to pick out 11 of these meta programs that we'll be sharing a little bit later, and how that it is the synthesis of the meta programs that causes the self-actualization. So that if you're a big picture, or if you're a detail person, you'll do meta detailing. So you'll do both at the same time simultaneously. So meta detailing is doing both at the same time. You'll synthesize it. And that's what really creates genius. A genius is a meta detailing person. So it's not that we're lost in the atmosphere, it's not that we're into the details, but that we're doing both simultaneously. And so we'll get to that synthesis where we'll utilize that. If you're new to meta programs, we'll be talking more about that a little bit later, so there's no need to be concerned about that now.
Hi. One of the things I'm looking at is about how I respond to food when I eat. And I find that if I'm tired, if I'm stressed, I'm more likely to make choices that I wouldn't make if I was more healthy and of a present mind. I mean, I don't see myself having a semantic meaning in that. I see myself easily satisfying some desire that I have.
Okay.
I don't know how to deal with that. I don't feel a meta program sitting there commanding me. I just feel like
where's that meta program?
you are.
So the first thing we heard, what's your name?
Ashton.
Ashton. The first thing we heard from Ashton is contextual meaning. It doesn't occur all the time, but when he's hungry or when you're tired.
Yeah.
So in that context, so that contextual meaning, so in that meaning, the food means something probably other than fuel and for the metabolism. It's probably comfort food. It probably means, here's a way to take care of myself, nurture myself, love myself, reward myself, value myself. So you're psycho-eating, because you're not eating for metabolism and for energy. But in that context, when that occurs, it's like, where's my cookie and milk? And so we can eat for de-stressing. We can eat, so then what is the psychological value of, if it's not for the physiological thing? So it's semantically loaded in that way, because it means that. And this is where every lower need, from food to sex to all the security things, to having house, to having money, we can psychologically load these, and then it's psycho money, and then it's psycho, so that it's so loaded, it's not just what it is anymore. It's not just metabolism or fuel. It's now, it means so much at the psychological level, and it's easy to understand how we got these frames. Mommy loves you so much. Here's some milk and cookies. And then we get connected. Love, food. And we may not even know.
So are you saying all of our behaviors?
No.
100%? No, just
No.
some of them.
We can, as Fritz Perls says, lose our mind, come back to our senses, and food is just food, and the taste and the smell is just wonderful, but it's just food. It's just food. Or money is just money, or whatever else that we've connected it with. So, like, most of us, exercise is not just movement of body.
It's pain.
It's pain. It's discomfort. It's struggle. And so we have psycho exercise that keeps us away from it effectively. Because it means something. So this is where we as meaning makers, we can contaminate and interface meanings with so many things. What does it mean to walk into a room of many people that you don't know? What does that mean? So even walking into a room of strangers, and what does it mean? And then what does it set off? Well, most of us have enough coping skills that we know how to say hi, and so, but if you look at a kindergartner or a first grader, the first day of school, already they got so many meanings. Will they like me? Will I get along? Will I have friends? Will someone eat dinner with me? And so it gets loaded with meaning because we do it so early in life.
So then there's a point where you attach meaning that has value. And then is there a level then to reach where the meaning falls away and we just simply chop wood and carry water? And then, so we're piling this meaning until we no longer need the meaning, and then we just are.
So this is when we get to the being level, and we can Fritz Perls in Gestalt therapy said, lose the mind, all these layers, and come back to our senses and be present, which is why a little child can be so present because they don't know what it means, so they're just curious and open and clear, and most of us have built up a mind, and sometimes it serves us, sometimes it doesn't. But also as a meaning maker, if you know that you see it through meanings, if you can suspend meanings, and that's what we'll do tomorrow as we build up the crucible. Because as a coach, as a trainer, as a parent, if you can suspend meanings, then you can be present and stay present to someone to find out what it means to them. Otherwise, I'll see it through all my filters, and I won't have a clue as to what they really mean and experience. So suspending meanings, when I used to do the games fit and slim people play with food, and we would have a meal catered in, and we would try as adults to eat the food as food. What does it smell like? What does it taste like? What does it feel like in the mouth? Instead of having conversations and doing everything else except paying attention to, so we lose our mind, come back to our senses with the food. And it's really difficult.
Michael.
Because we get so many things connected.
On this concept of thresholding, like I was noticing that, for example, I'd ask the question, how do you, is there an emotion connected with that? How do you feel about that? And then there wasn't one coming, so I was really present to that there was maybe either an avoidance or something about that. Is it when you ask that question 2 or 3 times, and there's nothing's forthcoming, do you move on? Do you? Okay. And then the other related question is, in these other images, metaphors, or whatever, it seems like we're almost trying to create. What is our kind of nastiest version of this thing? Like to really push this out and to be with the mess that it is, or something. I don't know. I'm just kind of wonder if you could.
Okay. It all depends upon how far a person has mapped. So if a person if a person has taken something and mapped it and then mapped it again, it may be just with a couple meanings sufficient now that every time they get in there, it's an aversive thing and they want to get out.
Right.
So it occurs, they feel the aversion, they want to get out, and then they respond with if impatience, if anger, if frustration, and they make a response and they cope that way. And they may not have mapped it much further. All it means is, it means they don't like me, it means I'm inferior, and they haven't mapped it any further. They just don't want to go there. I don't want to be inferior, so I'm not going to go there. So they haven't mapped it. So when you ask them, well, what does that mean? It just means that. There's nothing more. It just means that. So sometimes it's just that. And you can hear the edge of the world words around that mapping. It's just inferiority. It's only. And when you hear words like only and just, it means that they mapped it there and they haven't mapped it any further. Or they'll start cycling around 2 or 3 of the levels, and that's the top of it. And part of the reason that they haven't resolved it is they've never gone there. Because as soon as that gets triggered, and they're out of there. So we're doing what seems so counterintuitive. Just be with that. Let's say that's so. So. And usually maps like that, frames like that, were made with a 7-year-old mind, or a 13-year-old mind. And so they mapped it, and they haven't gone any further. But now, with a 30-year-old mind, a 50-year-old mind, we map and say, yeah, so what? And sometimes it just kind of dissolves even at that point. Because now we're at that step back to where we can recognize I mapped that. And it's not useful, it's not significant, and it's like it starts reorganizing. So sometimes, but it's that inviting them into just being in that space for a minute and seeing where it goes. Because we have that reaction, I just don't want to go there, the frame by implication is I'm kind of afraid of me. I'm kind of afraid of my mind. I'm kind of afraid where this might go, so I don't want to go there. So it's like a dark closet and we just won't open it. And so we have whatever the emotion comes out, pain or... So this is what I want to mention. I'll mention this before we go to lunch. On page 21, the feel of our meanings. Does meaning have a feel? What is the feel of meaning? If we ask the question, where and how do we register the feel of our meanings? The answer is we feel meanings in our emotions. This makes emotions pretty important. Where did they come from? What are they? Well, the word, and you can see the word E and X and motions, that's what the Latin was, ex motions, which means to move motion out. So an emotion in the anatomy of the brain is the motor cortex cued for an action tendency. So every emotion is an action tendency, and the motor cortex is telling us do something. If it's not more than just breathe heavy, sweat, dilate the eyes, do something to move out from where you are. Now, the negative emotions are like brakes. They're like stop, danger, threat, look, listen. So wherever we've been driving with our map and something's not working and our map, our frames feel violated, the whole system is moving us to stop doing whatever we're doing because we're now under threat. So anger, fear, sadness, guilt, just all those are breaking. So they inhibit, and we have in our neural pathways 2 forms of neural pathways. We've got inhibitor neural pathways to stop and inhibit, and we've got excitatory. So the positive emotions operate like the gas, excitatory. To keep the map is being validated, so keep doing what you're doing. So positive negative is like brakes and accelerator. It's like stop and go, and it gives us different kinds of energy. The go energy is softer, gentler. It's just like the accelerator, whereas you can slam brakes on. And it's louder, it's more intense, it'll catch your attention because there's danger. Whereas the other one is just keep doing it. So the positive emotions are the emotions to live in. Just, put the gas on, let's go. Joy and happiness and contentment and excitement and compassion and gentleness and sexuality and sensuality and playfulness. And so whereas the negative ones indicates that the map is not working. That somehow whatever we mapped and whatever we're experiencing, it's tipping and it's feeling threatened. What's feeling threatened is your map, your sense of reality. Because you created that sense of reality and now it's not working. So it feels like it's really getting to the core view. So the negative and positive emotions is the stop and go energy system. And so now as we look, the emotions are going to be great signals, great symptoms of me. So when someone tells me they're scared to death, great, your emotions are working, the engine is operating. Now, specifically, what is triggering the frame of fear? And then we can backtrack to the maps and the understandings to see if it's realistic or unrealistic, to see if the skills are appropriate to whatever you're trying to do, because we might change the skill level or we might change the map level. So here are 5 things about emotions. Emotions are always right. Right to the maps and experiences out of which they arise. Emotions are just emotions. They're not orders about what to do. They're not indicators of external reality. They are completely fallible and not infallible. Emotions are always relative to the maps and experiences, and so they're informational. Number 4, emotions are semantic registering of our meanings. And number 5, emotions can be responded to in a variety of ways. So when the emotion comes up, if it's information, then that emotion, as you welcome it in, notice it, acknowledge it, embrace it, what is it telling you? Should you listen to it? Should you take counsel from that emotion? Or should you ignore the emotion? Is it a dated emotion? Is it an irrelevant emotion? Is it an erroneous emotion? Because if it came from thinking, and thinking can be erroneous, then it can be erroneous. So now we have choice point again. What should I do about all this emotion? It's wanting me to move out. Should I not? Should I face the fear? Should I transform the anger? Should I integrate the joy? It's just an emotion. It's just very important, very relative. It's just informational. So now we can embrace every emotion. That's what we're going to do tomorrow in the Crucible. Embrace every emotion because it makes you alive. And you want to. I wouldn't want to drive my car without brakes. I live in Colorado, and going up in those hills, I wouldn't want to go without brakes. I want my brakes to stop, look, listen. But I don't want to ride my brakes, because if you're riding your brakes, how much more energy is it going to take to go? And how much strain is that going to be on the engine? Well, I know people who live with their brakes on. And then they wonder why they can't get motivated. Because it takes so much energy to get going when they got their brakes on. You know, fool, take the foot off the brake. And then you got so much energy just to get going. So emotions, so what we're going to do tomorrow is, which emotions do you want to take into the Crucible? Because we can use all of them are great. So we're going to set that frame. These are 5 frames about emotions. We'll take the negative ones in, we'll take the positive ones in, so that we can use, emotions give you energy. If you have a frame of, like so many of, my dad says, boys, do not cry. If you cry, I'll give you something to cry about. And he was very effective. And so for the longest, I didn't have permission to have sadness or tears. Because I'd have a loss, and there was a threat to my map because something important to me was lost, and so I feel like crying, but then I knew if I cried in his presence, I'd really have something to cry about. So I didn't have permission to cry. That was my frame. Boys don't cry. And I remember the first time I said, I give myself permission to cry. You don't be a sissy. People take advantage of you. Nobody will like you. All the frames, all the dragons in the back was just screaming, and I had to give it new meanings. I give myself permission to cry because real men can use their windshield wipers. And so we have to fight some of the cultural frames that we've been brought up in, whether it's your family culture, religious culture, language culture, racial culture, national culture, these frames that we just we're born into that matrix so that we can use our emotions effectively. Because sadness will tenderize the heart. Sadness will make us more human and able to enter into the human experience. So that's what we'll do with emotions. So emotions is the feel of your meanings. The feel of your meanings is your emotions. So we're going to really use those and not be afraid of them. But how many of you have been afraid of your emotions? Or angry at your emotions? Or, the worst thing is feeling guilty for your emotions. Okay, you're going to get punished because you had a smile on your face. Too much fun. And so we feel guilty for having an emotion. But this energy, when we turn negative emotions, which are great when they're about the world, but when you turn them against yourself, you're just in self-abuse. And the energy has nowhere to go except the body is going to pay that price with ill health and rigidness and stuckness and screaming voices. So if you want to, this is what we do in dragon slaying and metastates. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. From this day forward, I will not turn negative emotions against myself. I will embrace my negative emotions. Amen. Hallelujah. That if we make a choice decision that I'm not going to get in conflict with my emotions, they're just emotions, semantic registering of meanings, then I can embrace them. Now, some people also have to do that with the positives. I will bring positive emotions to myself. I'll be kind and gentle with me and bring compassion and love, dignity and worth. I'll treat myself as precious. Because some people, that's forbidden. My dad also said, now, don't let that go to your head. And later on I thought, but that's where I want it to go. I want to feel good about myself.